before I jump on to how to make it interactive, something I wanted to point out about tweak mode is if you have some variables that you think you want to just keep as the variables, so in other words, they're not like plus 100, if you're going to go into tweak mode, it can be helpful to have just the +0. So that way, when you're in tweak mode, it gives you a spot that you can adjust. So if it's just the variable is like the thing that it's not underlined, I can never tweak it. But if I say x3 plus 0, that gives me a number and allows me to tweak it. So I did from the last video, I don't know, I didn't like the line, so I went in, I made it a curve, I changed it to something else. And then you could go in and keep tweaking and see if you get something else that you like instead with the tweak mode. Okay? So remember, that is a totally legit and cool way to work with this project. And it also is really helpful with your tweak mode to have a background, so that way it gets erased and you're not just seeing exactly what you're not seeing the trail. Okay, so moving on to getting this to be interactive. What we're going to do is in our rotation, I'm going to write mouse X plus mouse Y. All right, so that's a little bit different. So we're adding the two on. Of course, there are other ways that you can get things to be interactive, like in my fill, I could get this to be like mouse X divided by 4, remember, because it caps out at 250 and mouse X would go all the way to 800. And you guys also have learned to remap the values of mouse X and mouse Y, so you could do that as well. Okay, so one thing you may notice immediately is that, it moves very quickly. So, if you want to investigate remapping the value of mouse X, that would be cool. But I only put this rotate mouse X and mouse Y in one of my shapes, and they're all rotating. Let me just make this guy so we can see it. Yeah, okay, so you can see how everything is rotating. So to control that, we're going to do what's called push and pop the matrix. And basically that's just saying, remember how I explained like this translate as being you're changing the point of origin? So we're changing the point of origin from being the upper left corner to being the middle. That's a matrix. So I'm going to put in multiple different matrices, and that's just going to allow those translates to be separate, and the rotation will only apply to whichever loop I have it on. So you just write push matrix. I am putting the push matrix before the translate, then I have my while loop. I close my while loop, and I'm going to come down and I'll say pop matrix. No arguments, and it's just a semicolon. The float doesn't need to be in it, so I'm going to go outside after my float, and I'll say push. So I'm putting a new matrix in, semicolon, and I'm going to bring back my translate. So for each one of these, I'm going to put in the translate. So I have my translate, I have my while loop, I have my closing bracket, and I'm going to pop the matrix. Plus, it's just kind of fun to say push and pop matrix. Okay, and my float doesn't need to be in it. So again, I'm push is always the first one. Push matrix. That's starting a new translate. And then I close it out. And here at the end, I pop the matrix. Okay, so now just that one is rotating. So not to say you can't have all of them rotating, maybe you'd want to, but if you want to be able to control them, that's how you're going to do it. The same thing would be if I wanted to be able to have multiple rotations on the page like this, you're going to do that with the push and the pop matrix as well. So I'll pull up this one over here. Okay, so let's say I wanted to get something else rotating, but like up in here. I'd need to change that point of origin. So let's just see how quickly I can just do something like that. I'm going to copy from a push matrix to a pop matrix. Keep it within my draw. And I'm going to, so that's my pop matrix, this is my new matrix. And instead of putting it in the middle, I'm going to say width divided by 3 and height divided by 3. And let's just make this a new variable. So float x4 equals 0. I'm going to make this a small one, float x4. Change this to 4. Oh boy, why did I take the curve one? Too much code, but okay, I'm in it, so I'm going to keep going for it. X4, X4. This is going to just look like a disaster, but it's okay. It's just for the example, and I don't want this to go very large, so I'm going to say, well, it's less than 150. And what we should see is another rotation. Oh, there it is. See, it's up over here. Let me do it with just a different shape. That would be easier. Okay, and so here it is. And so that's still obviously like way too big. Let's just make that really small. So 50. And I have this guy over here. And if I want to keep moving it, so maybe I don't even have to put in the width divided by 3 and height divided by 3. Maybe I want to say, I'm going to translate it so it's at 100, 100. Maybe you just prefer to have the numbers, okay? And now it's up over here. And then I could just push matrix, pop matrix, copy and paste and do another one and put it over at 400, 100, and so then I have another one over there. Okay, I'm going to comment that out just because I don't really like the way that looks. And one other thing that you could do here would be going back to what we know, and instead of having a background, using the fading rectangle. So that we want to make sure is happening before our translate. What did I write here? 0, 0. I just missing my comma. And that can be a really nice effect to combine with the movement. See how you get that kind of like cool little fade down? So definitely either remap the values of mouse X and mouse Y to be something a lot smaller, or keep it like this, but make sure that you have that fade on, so that way it gives you kind of like a cool zoom down. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions about that. And then in the next one, we're going to start talking about how to add noise. So they'll be moving on their own.